Hello and welcome to Dialogue Options. My name is Ellen and today I'm joined by Heather and Rob, and we're going to be talking about games that we have spent at least 100 hours in. So who would like to kick off with one of their 100-hour plus games?
I think the first game that came to mind when I thought about this question was Dragon Age Inquisition. I've played this game to death. Like I basically lost count of the amount of hours I put into it at this point. So I've just done so many playthroughs. A lot of it was down to originally getting it on the 360 because at the time when it came out, I didn't own an Xbox One or a next gen console at the time. And then as soon as I got like an Xbox One, I jumped straight in and played through it again because I could see what the game was supposed to look like rather than the sort of bogged down version on the old console. But I've mostly played Dragon Age Inquisition so much because, for one, I absolutely adore the world that it creates and then lets you explore, and also all of the characters in it. There's so many ways you can play through the game. It's not just every playthrough is the same. So you could, for example, be a dwarf rogue and have lots of humor and just be a smart ass the whole way through, which is great fun. You could be a canary who's just a bit of a tough cookie, and it's interesting because all of the sort of classes and races in the game give you a different perspective on the world of Thedas as well, which is quite interesting. And also romance, which is such a huge draw for me anyway in the game. I want to romance everybody and smooch all the characters. So in order to do that, I have to do multiple playthroughs so that I can romance everyone. Because, you can't be having multiple romances on the go. That's just not on, is it? So, yeah.
Well, some games that's more acceptable than others. But
yeah, that's true.
I always find the draw with games like that, where you can play as quite an honourable, good person. I always find I'm compelled to play again because I will never play as a mean person in my first go. But once I've got what I see as like the true story out of the way, then I'm like, okay, I can go back in, can be a little bit meaner, can maybe smooch a few more people behind other people's backs. I feel like that's not my true playthrough. If that makes sense. Because sometimes I will go back
you have to assume that the good playthrough is canon, right?
Yeah, that's canon. That's
definitely.
Out the way. Now we have fun. Now we do if there's a game where that's one interaction with like crossed swords or something to imply that that's the one that's going to make people fight you. I'm like, now I'm going to see what that actually does. Because before I was too much of a goody to go down that route. But now the gloves are off. Anything can happen.
Totally. It's so fun just being absolutely horrible in another playthrough because you're like, it's fine. It's not the real one. I can be mean to people and hurt people. It's not the real thing. It's a bit like with Mass Effect. You've got like two ends of it where you're either a paragon or a renegade, and like the paragon is just kind of democratic and an upstanding shepherd, and then renegade's just like, I'm gonna kick you out of a window, which is fun.
I mean, it's a bit extreme. It's just two extremes, though, isn't it? It's like I could have happily come somewhere down in the middle sometimes, but I remember
probably
that.
More realistic, isn't it?
Well, yeah. It's like, why? I just remember thinking at the time in like Mass Effect 3, why would someone be going for all the renegade-y bits all the time? You just come across like a total arsehat.
But then you get to punch lots of people.
Well, that's true. I remember one. Yeah, I remember one punching a journalist or something. That was quite funny. But,
I don't know how to take that.
Well, yeah. In terms of the context of that was quite fun.
Did someone on the Games on our team upset you, Rob?
Yes, I think it was a games journalist specifically. No, it was. I just remember that's the one that just came to mind because otherwise I just ignored the other ones. I even like held the controller away so I wouldn't even accidentally hit the R2 button or R1 button.
Yeah.
Well, it's one thing about that kind of separates games where you can be good and bad is because like games like Red Dead Redemption 2, for example, has a very clear scale of how honourable you are, but it only really leads to a couple of minor differences. So I wouldn't necessarily go back into that game to play as a horrible Arthur, because I wouldn't get much out of it. And I've seen the opposite ending on YouTube. I feel like I've got everything out of that game that I needed to. As much as I love it, I don't think I would go back and play it. Maybe in a few years' time, but not in the same way that you would almost finish a playthrough of Dragon Age and then go straight back in, because it's like, now this is the new me going in. Whereas that doesn't have that much of a variable, so that's what stops it being a 100-hour game and leaves it as like a mere 60-hour game or something.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah, there's so many choices in Inquisition you can make that really feel like, they have consequences in them. Yeah,
I guess that's one thing that splits certain games like that apart, is some of them are more the illusion of choice, whether others you actually see it put into action, and that's kind of what rewards you going back in 3 different times and being 3 very different characters.
I was going to say, that's a good way of putting it. The theme of choice is definitely the way. Well, one reason why I ended up getting into those BioWare games as much as I did. I think Origins I downloaded originally first, but then that ran a bit jaggedy on my PS3 for some reason. So I tried Dragon Age 2, and Dragon Age 2 is the one that really clicked, and I finished many times. And I think again, it was a mixture of the choice that came from the characters, as Heather was saying at the beginning, and the fact that you can go through it as a different character, and your dialogue options are different, and your companion choices are different, or romance options are different.
Do you think character customization is a big factor for open world games to draw you back in? The idea that you can be a dramatically different person, not just in the decisions you make, but also your appearance and your species in some instances. Do you think that's a big draw to get you to come back a second or third time?
For me, in Inquisition or Dragon Age 2, in Inquisition, yes, definitely. That was easily. I mean, I think I would have done it if the choices were maybe more limited, because there's so much to do and so many other choices. But good big factor for me as well. Yeah.
Romance is a big one for me as well.
Oh, romance, yeah. Character customization's like a huge, like I spend far too much time customizing my character. And it basically just, it lets you just live out this fantasy and just completely lose yourself in the other world, and you don't have to be yourself. But at the same time, you can also see yourself reflected if the character customization is really good, which is important as well. But it's a massive draw for me, and it's always so much fun if you get to play an elf or a dwarf or a big canary with massive horns, for example, in Dragon Age, and just really throw yourself in the world of reckless abandon.
I do think a lot of the time it's a massive draw for me, but obviously Cyberpunk is coming in the near-ish future, and there's been a lot of talk about it. With that, because there are 3 very different backgrounds, I guess, rather than classes that you can pick, sometimes it is a draw and sometimes it kind of puts me off. The idea that I can have a playthrough and just not see certain scenes at all sometimes just makes me feel like I'm missing out, rather than I need to go back in and do this again and again and again. It's just kind of like, no, that's just lost in the void now. I can just talk to someone who played it a different way to me, and we can just go, oh, you saw that, I didn't see that person died, they didn't die for me. Like, I can't quite put my finger on what that thing is that sometimes makes me think, like with Skyrim, because you can play as different races. I think the first ever playthrough I played as an elf. I don't think I was a dark elf, but I was some type of elf that people weren't very nice to all the time. And I didn't like that, so then I went back in as a Khajiit, and people were even meaner to Khajiit, so I was like, no, forget that. And then I ended up playing as a boring old human, and I've played it through again as an elf later on. But that drew me in, because I was like, okay, now I'm going to experience life as a Khajiit, where everyone thinks I'm going to steal from them all the time.
You with one of the trade caravans, Khajiit? Your kind always seems to find trouble.
I was just going to say, because of this, the aspect of choice is massive in these sort of kinds of 100+ hour games. It's great. But there's also so it's a double-edged sword, a blade in a way, because it's great on one hand, but also it it can get a bit sort of jading on the other when you've got all this large chunks of the same content, which is why open world RPG games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where you don't have as much like change, or there's not going to be as much change in terms of there's 8 different characters to choose from the beginning, or your background stories and whatnot. It's actually quite good. and you know sort of the parameters within the playthrough generally, which is why I was going to go on to and say that's why I've spent 130 odd hours in AC Odyssey, but happy with the one playthrough, even though there's elements of choice, because I'm happy that there's not as much choice. And because it's sheer quantity of excellent #content.
Yeah. I guess it's the difference between wanting to go back into an open world game to play it in a different way, and with Odyssey I've only played it once. I have spent more than 100 hours in it, mainly because I wanted to get the platinum, but that was more the case of I wanted to carry on being that one person rather than I'm going to go in again as a completely different person, upset everyone that I liked before, and then see what happens. It's like I just wanted to carry on being Cassandra, which is a completely different side of the scale.
That's sort of what I was sort of edging towards. 100%. Yeah.
I kind of had a point actually, because you mentioned the platinum, getting the platinum. I know there was one trophy for, wasn't it just sort of stepping in every part of the world, and the world is so huge, every part of the map. There's that kind of thing that takes ages to do. So you really have to invest a lot of time to also just find out where you haven't been is quite hard to do, because the map's not always obvious.
Yeah, especially when one of the bloody regions didn't even have a name.
I do think Assassin's Creed games, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think on the scale of big open world RPGs to platinum, they're quite nice ones to do. They don't have too many super tedious, go find these 10 items, but there's no way of finding out which ones you've already got kind of things. It's mostly just asking you to be thorough in certain places, and if you enjoyed the game anyway or enjoyed being that character, it's something that you would probably do naturally anyway.
Yeah, I did that with both Origins and Odyssey, and they're about 100 plus hours each. But I think they're really, I mean, in the context of the platinum, but also revisiting for doing tasks, they've made those two. They've really sort of shifted and made it, a nicer thing to do, and not as much of a chore. Well, if you wanted to platinum Assassin's Creed 2, good luck finding 100 of those feathers.
Oh god, the feathers.
I think that's what it comes down to, is where the goalposts are. If they're within reach, then I will always keep playing something. Whereas if I know I have to be better at a game to achieve something, I'm like, that's not gonna happen. I am what I am, and what I am is average at this game. So
I feel that strongly. I think that's why I always liked with Skyrim and Fallout, it didn't necessarily pin a trophy on difficulty level in the game, so you could play the game on the easiest level and know that you could basically get every trophy. But having said that, if I love a game enough, I'll try and train myself to get better at it. Like Dragon Age Inquisition, I played it on Nightmare as well setting to get that platinum. And I think the reason I could do that was just because I loved it so much that I was willing to put myself through that to get to the end of it. And I just enjoyed the combat system as well enough to learn it and be like, okay, I can do this if I do this or that. Sometimes it can also just pin on how much you love a game and how much you're willing to put yourself through to get an achievement or whatever.
It's a combination, I guess, of how attainable certain things are that you need to do in the game and how much you actually deep down want to do them.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll do this again in a few months' time and see what our new ones are.
I think the next one for me will be tied to next gen as well. I think I'm saving. I'm probably going to save Assassin's Creed Valhalla for PS5.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna do it probably because I'm gonna dive. I want to get all the content, get the gold edition or ultimate edition or whatever, and just do it on that as well because I've got enough to sort of. It's one of those games which, not like The Last of Us Part 2, which I really did have to get into straight away. I'm a massive Assassin's Creed fan, but I'm happy to sort of wait for the right time to play it rather than just the first time to play it.
I feel like that with things that are special to me. It's like the day that The Last of Us 2 arrived, I didn't play it on that day because I was like, no, I'm not in the right mindset. I'm not in a very good mood. I don't want to play something I've waited this long for on a bad day. I'm happy to wait for a day where I'm happy and have all the good snacks.
I think I even got in that mindset for like Red Dead 2. I was like, I'm gonna probably wait for next gen for that. Cyberpunk, I'm definitely going to wait for next gen as well. So combined with a few other non-hundreds plus hour games that are in my backlog, I've just sort of, this is how I think that's how it's going to go down.
Well, thank you for chatting with me, guys.
Well, thanks for
this was almost 100 hours of conversation, so it was very fitting.
Very good. That is the closing line right there.
Yeah, I look forward to see what games people put in the comments. As always, there's always ones I never even thought of, but it's like, oh, of course. So look forward to see what people write in the comments, and thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Bye.